Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:06. It's O'Connor and Company this Tuesday morning, where we're waking up feeling pretty upbeat and positive about the world. It's hard not to after seeing that march, the March for Israel yesterday on the National Mall. Yeah, we got problems. Yeah, we got some lunatics. Yeah, we got serious issues we're facing. But just for a day, can we feel like common decency does prevail, that we actually have incredible opportunities in this country to come together and actually stand for what's right? We saw that yesterday. Let's keep that energy going. It's been a month of seeing the worst of our country, sadly, on college campuses and, well, in the halls of Congress. But we, the people, are still a little bit better than all of that. We saw it, and we're going to keep running that ball down the field. It's 6:35. Cal Thomas will join us. 7:05. Gordon Chang on Xi Jinping in China, meeting with Joe Biden. I'm Larry O'Connor. Speaking of positive, upbeat attitudes, look who's with us this morning. It's Jessie Jane Duff, retired United States Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant. Good morning, Gunny.
Hey, good morning, Motivator. I'm glad to be here, and I'm on my second cup of coffee, so stand by.
Oh, good Lord.
Arm wrestle?
Man.
You want to arm wrestle? I could beat you now.
No, please. You
No?
could beat me in every kind of wrestling, and I don't even want to try. I surrender.
That's funny.
Joining us right now is a fighter in his own right, Sean Kennedy. He runs Virginians for Safe Communities, and as we saw the out-of-control crime in D.C. bleed across the Potomac in Fairfax County and in Loudoun County and in Alexandria, Arlington, what have you, Sean Kennedy decided this next election, the one that we just had last Tuesday, was the time to try to turn things around. He mobilized, and one of the targets was obviously the Soros-financed Buta Biberaj in Loudoun County, who in just a couple of years absolutely turned that county upside down. And we now have the official final tally. Buta Biberaj has lost her bid for re-election. And Sean Kennedy, like those runners on the beach in Chariots of Fire, you have every right to take a victory lap right now. It's been a long road, but well done you, good and faithful servant. You did it. Buta Biberaj's political future is pretty much kaput now.
Well, thank you. I'm out of breath, I'll tell you that. It's been quite the run, and we got her. I mean, Buta's been booted, as my compatriots at Stand Up Virginia had urged us all to do, Buta, and we did. And honestly, this was a huge effort. At the end of the day, this is Bob Anderson's. Bob Anderson's the one who put this over the top. His campaign was outspent 16-1, $1 million to $70,000.
It's amazing.
It is $1.1 million. They did this on a shoestring, and they got their message out. And I'm impressed by the Loudoun County Republicans and everybody else who came in here. And what's most impressive, honestly, and I think it's important to say, is how much Bob overperformed the other Republicans in Loudoun County.
Yeah.
Bob beat Juan Pablo Segura's numbers by almost 7 points. He overperformed almost every category outside of some of the sort of, no-name constitutional officers like the clerk of the court or whatever, which are, pretty much nonpartisan anyway. Anything that was competitive, from the chair of the school board to the chair of the county supervisors, the Democrats won. But Bob got people to either skip Buta's name because they hate her, or to vote for Bob because Bob is a better candidate. And so that is a impressive feat that we really, have to give accolades to. And we're down there with, we have attorneys down there. We have the volunteers from the Loudoun County Republicans and everybody down there making this happen in the last week. And we made sure it was a clean process. And unfortunately, not to, make this go extra innings, just to mix all the sports metaphors, we anticipate Buta Biberaj to file a lawsuit to continue to try to overturn this election, which, of course, is the deep irony, because Ian Pryor has brilliantly, our friend at Fight for Schools, started to unsurface all of Buta Biberaj's election deniers are the devil tweets, and we are going to post those at regular because she, of course, is now become what she so reviled, an election denier, that what happened didn't happen, and Buta deserves to win even though she lost, and so forth. So, unfortunately, I just have to urge the Loudoun County Democrats and the state Democratic Party. Buta is not a hill to die on. She's Boot Hill, for want of a better phrase. It's not a place to go. And I really hope the Loudoun County Democrats and the state party doesn't try to finance Buta's recount litigation.
This is Jesse, Jane Duff. So glad to hear about this win, but I'd love for you to elaborate a little bit more about how much money was poured into her campaign, because this is the one thing that makes this win so astronomical. What was her dollar amount compared to the win? That was on a fraction, a shoestring budget, and it goes to show how it resonated with the voters. Can you engage on that a little?
Yeah, so she spent but $1,110,000 roughly, and that's what we know about a couple days before Election Day. So she may well have spent more, but that's the last filing we saw. So let's just assume it's even higher. We know Bob spent about $70,000, $70,352, and what we know about that is that money from Buta came from George Soros in the form of the Justice and Public Safety PAC, which has a single donor named George Soros, the Working Families Party, which is a socialist party out of New York, which is also simultaneously funded by George Soros and a few other rich billionaires, and of course, blood relatives of Buta Biberaj. Her father, her brother, and her father's business partner are Buta's other largest contributors. Aside from those people, Buta got almost no money. I mean, other than out of her own pocket, she's in hock to her own campaign by $300,000. Wow. So Buta's money is all her family, George Soros's. So she got no money and no support from outside groups, outside locals. And Bob shoestringed it. He asked people for money and help, and he got people didn't come out, and they still managed to get their message out. They used their money very efficiently, $70,000, to target the right people at the right time with the right messages, moderate Democrats, independents, and Republicans, and said, you know what, you have a choice in this election. We're not going to ask you to vote on Juan Pablo Segura. We're not going to ask you to vote on the board chair or whatever. We're asking for your vote in this election, and Buta Biberaj is not the right person for that. I'll illustrate that in one way. One of Buta's deputies came up to an ally of ours the other day and said, if she wins, I have to quit because this is a blank show and not the election. Talk about the office. Yeah. Even her own deputies are just disgusted, frustrated, and want out. They said they had to leave the county because it was so bad.
Absolute David and Goliath election, Sean Kennedy, and you were a big part of it. Congratulations. And yet it sounds like we need to stay vigilant because she's going to do whatever she can, and she'll be well funded to try to contest this election and overturn this election, which tells you everything about who Buta Biberaj is. She lost fair and square, and she's not going to go down without a fight, so we need to stay on top of that, and we will. Thanks to people like you. Sean Kennedy, Virginians for Safe Communities, thanks for joining us. Good job.
Thank you.
A quick reflection quickly before we bring in Jamie Whitten here. Ian Pryor put this out on Twitter yesterday. In just 3 short years, when you look at Loudoun County really being the center of the American political universe since the last presidential election, Buta Biberaj is now gone. That school board who started everything with their outrageous behavior, not a single member of that school board is left. Most of them resigned on their own. Some were kicked out, and the last remaining member just lost re-election. There is an active federal Title IX investigation into the Loudoun County Public School System, and Scott Ziegler, the person who ran Loudoun County Public Schools, is not only out of a job, but he's been criminally convicted for his behavior. What a difference. And I'm glad Ian Pryor put that out there. It must have been cathartic for him to note all of the things that he has been able to spearhead. We've been thrilled to give voice to the opposition in Loudoun County, and parents, I know that things seemed bad after Election Day last week, but if you look at every single election, for the most part, that was confined to Loudoun County proper, Republicans won. The bad guys were booted out. Some of the state races for states, and those bridged, the districts were created and formed to have just enough of Fairfax in there to make a difference. Loudoun County is now making that U-turn. It didn't get there overnight. So it's going to take a little while to right the ship, but it's moving in the right direction now. And it's thanks to your incredible activism. Unbelievable story. And it's just the beginning. Fairfax, you're next. 6:16. Let's get to Jamie Whitten now in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
Weeknights with Mark Levin, 6 to 9 p.m.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
I know folks say, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true, because it's true.
That's Governor Gavin Newsom. What a genius. He wants to be president, admitting that they cleaned up San Francisco for one reason only, because there was a communist authoritarian coming to town, and we want to put on the best face. They wouldn't do it for the people of San Francisco, but they'd certainly do it for Xi Jinping, who is now on the ground in San Francisco for this summit, the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. President Biden is there as well. We've got Gordon Chang joining us at 7:05 to give us the breakdown on how these conversations are going to go. But I don't know, Jesse Jane, it seems like any kind of conversation we have with China that doesn't involve holding them accountable for all of the theft, all of the humanitarian violations and human rights violations, the bullying of American companies if they want to do business in that country. Oh, and let's not forget the COVID-19 virus that they are still not coming clean on, that they still won't allow American and international entities to investigate and get to the bottom of. It seems like until we actually have a reckoning over the virus and the pandemic and the deaths worldwide at their hand, maybe there's not a whole lot more we should talk about with this authoritarian government.
My goodness. And then to watch Gavin Newsom even go over to China, watching him basically try to placate a communist leader and country. And when you talk about humanitarian rights, we're talking about Uyghurs that are imprisoned. There has been forced abortions for women that maybe were pregnant out of wedlock, or Uyghurs that have had their organs donated. I mean, just really repulsive, extreme issues of human rights. And yet we don't hear a peep out of that with Gavin Newsom, who proclaims himself to be a sanctuary state and very inclusive and, diverse. Meanwhile, he's working with dictators in a manner as if he worships them. And I think this is just going to backfire on him. And it sounded like when he was speaking, like he was trying to make a joke out of it, like he was going to deny. We didn't clean it up because of Xi. And it's like he had gone too far down the road and he realized what he was saying. So he had to, well, it's true. We did clean it up for, wow. You guys are admitting, you're saying the quiet part out loud, and you're denying American citizens clean streets. And let me tell you, the tax rates in California are high enough that people shouldn't have to go through this and wade through mud and muck and human waste in San Francisco till a communist leader shows up.
Well, to be entirely fair to Gavin Newsom, a virtue that he would not, and a grace he would not extend to people like you and me, Jesse Jane, he did go on to say,
But it's also true, for months and months and months prior to APEC, we've been having different conversations.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for months, about cleaning up. Let me tell you something. Before Gavin Newsom was governor, and he's been governor for 6 years now, he was lieutenant governor for 8 years under Jerry Brown. And before that, he was mayor of San Francisco for 8 years. He's been promising, all the way back to when he was mayor of San Francisco, that he was going to clean up the streets and solve the homeless. Right? He keeps promising, I've got the solution. I'll solve homelessness, which of course means throwing more money to it and empowering the criminal vagrants to continue to live on the streets. And it's only now. We've been talking about it for months. He's been promising a solution for years. San Francisco and the state of California as a whole is exactly what Gavin Newsom has always intended. He's had no political opposition. Everything that's going on in that state is by his design.
Right, and the media has allowed it. You look at the Sacramento Bee, you look at the local networks, and they always go along to get along. The media has enabled a lot of this. There's 40 million people out in California. And when I hear people talk about, oh, well, they get what they voted for. First of all, 23% of the registered voters are Democrat, okay? 22% are Republican, and 22% are non-party affiliated.
Yeah.
You combine those two sides, they actually can win. But you have such an establishment that fights against them, and the money that pours in from the Soros types and the Communist Party, we do know influences a lot of what happens. You're sitting and feeling frustrated. That's why so many Californians have left. It was Reagan country. In fact, I was at the Reagan Library just on Saturday celebrating freedom. Reagan would roll in his grave to see who's the governor now.
Yeah, he absolutely is. It's 6:22.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:36 on this Wednesday morning. We're chugging along here. Super busy as usual. Coming up at 7:05, we're going to speak with Gordon Chang about the Xi Jinping summit in San Francisco with Joe Biden and some other nations, but really all eyes are on America and China, understandably. And, of course, future President Gavin Newsom is there presiding over the entire event as well. Plus, we have more discussion of yesterday's inspiring Israel march on the National Mall. Speaking of inspiring, we're joined all morning by Jesse Jane Duff, retired gunnery sergeant from your United States Marine Corps. Thanks, Gunny, for being here.
I'm always excited to be here. And I will have to say, Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden got to report to their boss when she lands.
Let's not go all drill sergeant on Cal Thomas, though, if you could. He's served his time. He is, of course, syndicated columnist and author of the new book, A Watchman in the Night. And Cal, I got to say, I absolutely overwhelmed by 290,000 strong yesterday on the National Mall, marching for what's right, marching for what didn't even used to have to be marched for in this country, our support for Israel. But now apparently that's in doubt, given what we've seen over the last month. But it really was sort of energizing to see that sort of outward support for something that is so fundamental to what this nation stands for.
You're absolutely right, Larry, and it was exciting to see. It should have been unnecessary. There was another counter-protest, pro-Palestinian protest at Columbia University again yesterday. Our universities have just gone totally woke. But, there were another 900 demonstrators I just read this morning in the Washington Post, so it must be true, that couldn't make it because the bus drivers walked off the job. So there were several buses, 900 more could have joined the ones who were already there. But it was good to see, and it's terrible to have to see this. People don't realize that Hamas is a murderous terrorist organization. They have their headquarters in the basement of that hospital in Gaza, where the Israelis are now, and if any civilian, any baby gets hurt, they cry out, and CNN and BBC and MSNBC take their side. It's disgusting.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Cal, this is Jesse Jane Duff.
Yeah, Jesse.
We're so excited you're here, and I've just got a quick question about, have you heard the updates about apparently the Israelis have gotten to the hospital, and what do you expect for them to do now that they are going to be able to get involved or engage the Hamas fighters in this hospital?
It's going to be dangerous because the Hamas people hide behind babies and women and men and civilians and dare Israelis to shoot them while they have guns that they will be shooting at the Israelis. It's a very, very difficult thing. But they've done this for years. I went up with the Israeli army.
We've talked about this.
In 1982, called Operation Peace for Galilee, and we found unexploded ordnance and arms in the basement of apartments and hospitals and other civilian places. They've been running this play for a long time, but the major media so often shift what should be their support for freedom and democracy in favor of the terrorists as victims. This play has been going on longer than an off-Broadway play.
Well, certainly not the Fantastics, but yes, maybe some other.
Definitely not.
One other thing about yesterday's march, Cal, and I was so excited to talk to you about it today because it's few and far between when I see a big demonstration on the National Mall that I feel proud of and I embrace, because oftentimes it's just the dregs of society who, get astroturfed out there and well financed, and they're marching to drag down American values and principles. One of the organizers of yesterday's event is a young man named Daniel Krauthammer. That last name might ring a bell to you in particular, Cal.
Yeah. Yes, of course. The son of the great Charles Krauthammer. He was on Fox as well. It's wonderful to see him continuing his father's tradition. I'm just amazed at this. So many of my Jewish friends are incredulous about all of this. They thought they lived in a country that would support Israel and the Jewish people and that without end, and that these little incidents of anti-Semitism were the exception. I think this entire war has ripped the thin veneer off, and to see this kind of stuff, I mean, this is Hitlerian. This is Nazi Germany. This is marching in the streets without the goose-stepping. It's really, really frightening, and it's not happening just here. It's happening in Europe again. It's 1939 all over again in some minds.
Yeah. And finally, I'd love for you to reflect on the growing crime problem in D.C. You used to live here. You've liberated yourself. But the latest from Mayor Bowser, she said she's going to call it a public emergency because of youth crime. And she last week handed out free Apple tags. So when your car gets carjacked, because, you know, it's inevitable, we can at least track it down later. All of these platitudes, it's ridiculous how there are some basics in Western civilization that we've known for hundreds of years, Cal, on how to prosecute criminals and keep streets safe, but she refuses to do so.
Yeah, I thought when you were talking about crime in Washington, you were talking about Congress and the
Fair enough.
Violence that broke out yesterday between some members and threats and all this kind of stuff.
Yes.
I mean, what's going on here? Yeah, we've had this kind of stuff for years. Remember, had Bill Clinton with midnight basketball. That was going to solve the crime problem because all these young people would have something to do and they'd be able to burn off their energy at night by playing midnight basketball.
Yeah.
The problem is one party with a lax attitude toward crime has run Washington, D.C. since, the days of Walter Washington. There's never been a Republican mayor. There's never been a conservative prosecutor who actually brings the law to bear on some of these people, and so it just continues. And I never thought Washington's my hometown. I was born there. I never felt unsafe until now. I used to take cameras to New York, for example, when I'd go to shoot pictures. Now I take a can of mace. I think I'm going to do the same thing when I come back to D.C.
The legendary Cal Thomas, and the legend continues. Thank you, sir. Always good to talk to you, my friend.
Thank you.
Pink. Pink is, I suppose, a pretty talented performer, but she's not the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree, Jessie Jane Duff. She made a big grandstanding virtue signaling announcement before her concert dates in Miami by saying that she was going to make a big show of giving away the books that have been banned in Florida. Now, a couple things here. First of all, if the books have been banned, how is it possible that you're giving them away? Because last I checked, if something's banned, then you can't, actually own them or traffic them or peddle them. So clearly the books are not banned. The only books in question it's not just Florida, in any state right now that has an active parents' rights organization, is that they are evaluating whether certain books are age appropriate for their children in government-funded school libraries. And, of course, these are books that have explicit pornography in them. These are graphic images of graphic sexual acts that people like Pink would like your 7-year-old to have access to without your consent. So that's hardly banning books, number one. Number two, though, she gave a list of the books: To Kill a Mockingbird, Forrest Gump, Catcher in the Rye, The Hill We Climb, Atlas Shrugged, 1984, Diary of Anne Frank. These books are not banned in Florida, not even by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, To Kill a Mockingbird is banned in California school systems, many of them. So it's just everything about it is false and a lie, and she heard about it on social media as she made her announcement. It was a pretty beautiful thing to witness.
Yeah, I believe everything I see on Twitter. That's what her new theme should be. I read it. It has to be true.
Yeah, for people who are saying, wait a second, I did read something about Diary of Anne Frank. Yeah, there is a problem with a new graphic novel adaptation of the Diary of Anne Frank. It's not the actual Diary of Anne Frank that you all read when you were in school. No, somebody took certain portions of the Diary of Anne Frank where she, as an adolescent girl, had certain musings in her private diary about being attracted to other girls, which I'm told, according to Sigmund Freud, every child goes through when they're going through prepubescence and such, or a vast majority of them do. Anyway, this maniac decided to take that part of Diary of Anne Frank and explicitly show it in graphic detail in a book, as if the entirety of Anne Frank's story is about whatever same-sex attraction she may have felt in her dreams when she was 12 years old. It's actually an absurd bastardization of Anne Frank's legacy. That's the book in question, not the actual Diary of Anne Frank.
Well, the obsession with the sexuality of children is just astounding to me, because there was a time we just didn't even talk about these things outside of our home with teachers, or teachers educating us on things that are just really far too outside of our capability when we're in third and second and fourth grade about what we might be doing when we're 18, 19 years old. Pink obviously missed the mark on this. She's pulling out classic novels and trying to accuse an entire state of banning them when she doesn't even understand what's actually being banned. You're showing how ignorant you are.
Well, you're right. And any normal person would wake up after seeing the response and seeing the facts put in front of her on social media. They would wake up the next morning red-faced, but not so with Pink. In fact, she doubled down with her assertion that Florida is banning these books. It should also be pointed out, back in December of 2017, Pink explained why she's raising her children as gender neutral. She says she has a very label-less household, and her two children, daughter Willow, are we allowed to say daughter? Willow, at the time 6 years old, so now 12 years old, and Jameson, at the time 11 months, were being raised as gender neutral. Pink herself said that she sees herself as a preteen boy.
Oh, my goodness. She's made her entire name off of the sexuality that she does portray. She does not come across like a teenage boy in any of her music. I mean, she's flamboyant. She has makeup. She does everything she can to celebrate her womanhood, which has allowed her to make millions of dollars. And now she's just thinking, let me just raise my kids to have them completely screwed up.
Yeah. And also, by the way, her name's not really Pink. How about that?
Oh, yeah.
Just guessing, I'm assuming. Although if her parents did name her Pink and raise her as a person named Pink, that would explain a lot of this mania as well.
It would. Maybe she's really yellow.